right, so welcome back. So live on set now, we do have Dr. Ralph Henry, Kairi Consultants Limited, and Mr. Bruce Spencer, head of the Labor Market Information Unit at the Labor Ministry, to tell us more about their upcoming Job Vacancy Survey. Gentlemen, good morning and thank you for coming.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Mr. Spencer, let's speak about the Job Vacancy Survey. What is it?
Well, the Job Vacancy Survey seeks to look at the unfilled demand for the country, and that is in terms of employers, businesses and so on will have vacancies and so on within their organizations, some hard to fill, some of them easy to fill. So at the end of the day, we try to capture this kind of information because of the fact that that kind of information is not available. If you know about the labor market, the CSO produces information on the supply side, which is information on employees, employed, unemployed, the informal sector and so on. But for far too long, we haven't been getting any information in terms of the employer side, which in terms of the vacancies. And we need that kind of information to do a proper analysis of the labor market, to have effective monitoring of the labor market. So the vacancy survey is supposed to be able to fill that gap.
Is there any particular reason why now that is being embarked upon?
Well, of course, because of the fact that we would have done one early in 2012, and we didn't continue it after that because of probably staffing issues. We have now established the Labor Market Information Unit, and now we have decided that this particular project is very important to continue. And we want to do it not only for a baseline survey, but we also want to do it on a continual basis in terms of after we do the survey with Kairi Consultants Limited, which is who Professor Henry here is in charge of. We want to do it continually on a quarterly basis so that you'll be able to get information in terms of trend and emerging vacancies in the future.
And Dr. Henry, what role is Kairi Consultants playing in this whole exercise?
Well, we are conducting this survey which is on the demand side. Mr. Spencer spoke about what data exists on the supply side, and that's done from a household survey. The CSO goes to households distributed right across the country and find out who are the people working, who are the people available to work, and from that they derive information on the supply, number of people in the workforce, number of people who are unemployed, etc. This is the demand side, where we go to the employers, who are the ones who employ the people. So you're getting both sides of the picture. And this kind of information is necessary if you're really serious about understanding what's happening in the country, not just simply from the supply side, but also on the demand side. And that allows you to do projections as to where are the likely vacancies, where the likely shortfalls in numbers of people who would be required in different occupations. So it's both occupational distribution, people across the spectrum of occupations, as well as geographic. So you have a sense of where the jobs are emerging in different parts of the country. Why this is important? It's important to workers themselves. They need to know, what are the prospects for employment in their occupation down the road. If you see that there are large numbers of people who are unemployed with your particular skill, you know that maybe you need to be retrained for the kind of new jobs that might be emerging, and at least you have some information as to where jobs are emerging, both geographically but also occupationally.
When does the survey begin?
It began on the 13th of February, and it continues until about the middle of May.
I'm just thinking, but doesn't that include, let's say, the questioning of maybe hundreds of thousands of employers?
Yes, we have a sample of about 2,000 employers, 2,000 firms, that is, and we have about 25 interviewers in the field, and they're collecting information with a standard questionnaire, which is quite extensive enough to get update the baseline information from this previous survey. But that will now be used, that information will now be used to develop a quarterly survey instrument which the Ministry of Labour will continue using based on the kind of preparation we would have provided to them in the conduct of this present survey.
Yeah. If we could just touch on the last survey before we move forward, what sort of information would have been collated during the last survey, and what was found, what was discovered?
Well, would have been, we were the ones involved, Kairi, that is,
Yes.
in analyzing the information.
Yes.
And of course, you identified gaps, large numbers of people who might have been required by employers that just were not available. And also excess supplies in some areas where you have more people than could be absorbed. You know, so you got that kind of information.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as Mr. Spencer indicated, the continuing upgrading of that information was not done. So that right now what we're doing is in a sense, updating that initial survey. And we now have a platform that can be used by the ministry, but also in its dealings and discussions with training institutions at the university level, tertiary, technical and vocational education, etc., and the Ministry of Education, which would have an interest in ensuring that the people who are being educated and trained in the education system have jobs to go to.
Yeah.
All right? And it also is useful to young people who are entering the labor market to anticipate, where am I likely to get employed and what careers I might select going forward.
Because you know, Mr. Spencer, you know, there's a saying in Trinidad and Tobago, everybody can be doctor and lawyer, you know. And there's this shortfall as it relates to trades.
Right.
Is that what the ministry is seeing?
Yes, of course, because of the fact that if you look at, there hasn't been any information in terms of vacancies. And the fact that that happened, I would say I was probably a victim of that. In terms of when I was choosing my degree, I didn't have the information in terms of where exactly are the jobs. I just hear people saying certain things and I decided to do it. And it was around my field as well. But at the end of the day, when I came out and I was looking for a job, it was pretty hard. So I went into training. There, I think NTB was at the point in time, that was the training. Structure at that point in time, and I got a little bit of training and so on. But at the end of the day, if I had gotten information from that before, you know, I would have been a lot better off, a little bit more confident in terms of what I was doing. So the idea is that having this particular vacancy survey will help that because it's data-oriented and it's good for decision making.
Yeah.
And if I might say,
Yes.
I was involved in the establishment of the National Training Board way back in the mid-1970s when, of course, the economy was booming and you needed a supply of all kinds of workers, including in the trades. And of course, the NTB worked with the training institutions, the John Donaldson, San Fernando Tech, etc., as well as with the comprehensive schools that were, you know, generating new entry-level personnel and in placing them in jobs. Yeah. Or at least in training positions in industry.
I'm just wondering, where does the person who is seeking a job, where are they going to, or if they would have access to the information that you're collating? Do they have that sort of information? Will they be given that sort of information?
Of course.
By the Ministry of Labor?
Yes, of course. After we do the survey and prepare the report, and we will be publishing the information, but I'll be on our website, of course. The website is www.labor.gov.tt, and we'll also have social media access as well. That'll be like in Instagram and Facebook, YouTube, and so on. And the handle there is LaborGovTT, at LaborGovTT.
And just to tell our viewers that you do have the opportunity, if you would like, but you're going to have to call now and speak to the gentleman to raise any questions that you may have. You can call them on 623-1711. The extension is 1995. Again, the numbers are 623-1711, the extension 1995, but you are going to have to call now, all right? Time is of the essence.
Let me quickly add to what Mr. Spencer just said, and it is that with the quarterly survey, they will now be able to update the information on a quarterly basis so that people can log on and find out what's the present situation, what are the prospects as they continue their careers, and both people who are entering but also people who are already working in the workforce. They will identify where there might be need for them to upgrade themselves based on the existing and current and continuing information that will come from these surveys.
And gentlemen, I think it is a very important exercise because, we're hearing too much that young people are taking in their education, spending thousands of dollars for studying a certain field for a number of years, and then they come out of school and they say, well, I can't get a job.
Yes,
right?
yes.
We do have a first call. Good evening. Good morning, caller.
Good day.
Yes.
I would like to ask a question to the gentleman there.
Go ahead.
Now, they were speaking about vacancies. Since I came out of school, there have been a number of my fellow peoples who have extreme difficulty in finding a job. And the jobs that they do find are not what I would call up the mark for the qualifications that they have acquired. Not only that, there has been a growing trend amongst employers about offering month-to-month contracts for labor. I don't know if there's a loophole in the system or if the government is simply ignoring the trend that certain employers have been ignoring the law, or in order to probably circumvent giving employees benefits.
All right. Thank you very much. Gentlemen?
Right. Well, first of all, I'd like to speak about what is would have asked in the first place. And this is something called like skills mismatch. That is happening in a lot of countries. And it happens because of the fact that probably the vacancies are not, is not fulfilling the needs of the persons outside here. And this is why the vacancy survey is important. The fact that we could get this information beforehand and we could see the places where they have the vacancies and the openings and the qualifications that are required. Once the training institutions realizes that, what will happen is that they would now have to put these qualifications in place so that persons will be able to have access to these qualifications to be able to carry out the job. In addition to that, the person who's speaking about they are not finding jobs that are available for them there. Now employers themselves will be seeing the kind of information that we're having and try to provide the kind of jobs that will be able to meet those demands of the people. For instance, I was talking to a colleague
Mr. Spencer,
last night.
if I could just stop you for a little while, because you do have another call. They're coming fast and furious.
Yeah.
Tabaki, good morning.
Good morning to Mr. Spencer.
Yes.
You was missed.
Thank you very
So
much.
let me continue. The first question to your guest.
Yeah.
We have Service Commission and the Ministry of Labor. We have clock there and people who to walk those lists seeking employment. The question to your guest, how will we have that list before we act more to it? Because we have consulting there, Service Commission and the Ministry of Labor, if they can answer that question.
Gentlemen, you got the question?
Yeah. And funny, we also did a public sector, civil service census. And that civil service census would have seen a lot of challenges that we are having right now in the civil service in terms of getting jobs and so on, positions filled. We are looking at that right now. The report is before our executives in the Ministry of Labor. Once our report is approved, we will try to publish it and send it out, and we'll have talks with key stakeholders so that we'll be able to address the challenges in terms of winning civil service. We know that the civil service in terms of hiring people are a little bit slow, and the situation is a little bit different. So we had to do that particular vacancy survey separation of this kind of survey that we're doing, which is the private and state agencies, because they're a little bit faster. And so two different environments, right? But what he's speaking about there, we understand that, but we have to print out the report and distribute the information so we can have further discussions.
All right.
Just quickly to add to the comment or the question,
Yes.
answer the question raised by the gentleman, the previous speaker. The fact that people are only accessing short-term contracts is indicative of maybe some bit of oversupply in that particular area, that particular occupation. Because if there's a shortage, employers will want to hold on to whomever they can reach and provide the kind of competitive salaries and terms and conditions for in areas where there's a shortage. So the information, the thing about this survey, as well as the one identified by Mr. Spencer in respect of the public sector, when you have all of this information, you have a better feel as to what's happening in the labor market.
Definitely.
On a current and continuing basis, and that information needs to be updated continuously.
So the survey is underway.
Yes.
It ends in
Middle of May.
in May.
We'll have our report in July, and then, of course, the Ministry of Labour would be taking it on, carrying it forward.
Yeah.
So that's when members of the population could see the benefits of the exercise.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right. So when they produce a report, we look at the report, we review the report, we'll give it out to our stakeholders, we'll make comments and so on. We would revise the report and then we'll publish it to the wider public.
All right, gentlemen. Anything else you'd like to add before you leave us?
Well, I would simply add that the Ministry of Labour is really getting up to date in terms of its responsibility.
Yes.
I suppose we know about the Ministry of Labour in respect of industrial relations issues. This is an important component of the operation of a Ministry of Labour, to keep the country constantly updated as to what is the situation with regard to supply from the CSO's data and demand from the employers.
Gentlemen, we appreciate you all coming here this morning to share this information with us. As you would have seen, persons have started calling to find out because they're very, very interested.
Yes.
So thank you very much again.
Okay, thank you.
Yes?
Yeah.
All right, so we must go to a very short break. Let's take a traffic update from Tobago.
And I could say exactly why, cause we create the rhythm in this calypso, and we will make the carnival that the world knows. So if you feel it, you should let it show, cause we are mighty.